I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday and we are going to be talking a little bit of rookie talk as we do our rookie mock draft. And we'll take a look at that. But Dennis, there was actually some news this week. Seems like not everybody has been quiet for the Pro Bowl and for the run up to the Super Bowl. Kind of a big announcement yesterday about Cooper Kupp coming from him saying that the Rams have let him know they are going to be trading him. I think one of the big questions coming into the offseason was what would happen with Kupp and Stafford. There have been some rumblings after that last playoff game. What do you make of this move and what do you make of what this means for Stafford and the Rams?
Well, I think if you recall back to our show on January 23rd, Cooper Kupp was one of my guys that I had likely to be traded this offseason. He's sitting there, 2 years left on his deal with $30 million in dead cap. He's going to be 32 in June. He hasn't played a full season since 2021. Now, I get it. Those aren't great selling points, but there are teams out there that need a guy that can do what Cooper Kupp can do. And obviously, if he gets traded, he's going to go, I think, above and beyond to try to make it through a full year healthy. So at least if he gets traded somewhere, I would expect if the team understands how to use his skill set, I would expect a pretty good year from him. I had mentioned there's a couple locations where he might fit. Washington, they need somebody to complement Terry McLaurin. McLaurin is fast. He's a great route runner. Cooper Kupp can do a lot of things, play outside and out of the slot. I think that would be a nice match. New England needs somebody. They just need somebody of note. And I think Cooper Kupp would be just the right type of guy to maybe unleash Kayshon Boutte and Jalen Polk. He would provide a lot of security for Drake May. I don't think it would cause Boutte or Polk to both blow up, but I think it would cause one of them each week to be fantasy relevant. Which one? That becomes like a kind of hit or miss. Who's it going to be? A couple other teams I've seen mentioned since this was announced. Pittsburgh, they need something to go with George Pickens. And Cooper Kupp is kind of almost a big Calvin Austin. Not quite as fast as Austin, but I think he plays out of the slot really well, would provide that type of role to whoever that quarterback is going to be in Pittsburgh, and we don't really know who that is. The Cowboys I've seen mentioned. I just don't think they have the money, to be honest. I just don't think they can do it. And another team I saw mentioned was the Broncos, and I'm not sure that the way that Troy Franklin came on and Cortland Sutton's playing and Devon Vele, it feels like they've got a pretty good core. And while you're always looking to upgrade, I'm not sure that I buy Cooper Kupp being a target for Denver.
Yeah, I didn't really buy Denver either, not because I don't think they'll add some pieces this offseason. I just don't think that's the kind of deal they're looking to go for right now. But it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He got the news from his team he was likely to be traded. Myles Garrett told the Browns and the rest of the world in a pretty nicely penned letter that he wants to be traded. How do you think this impacts their offseason and draft strategy? They definitely have the number 2 overall pick.
You know, I get where he's coming from. What, he's been in the league, 6 years now? 7, maybe 5. Seems like he's been around a while, and it has not been a great experience when it comes to culture and winning. So I get it that he's finally looking around and saying, I think it's time for me to do something else.
8 years.
8 years. Wow.
It's even longer than
I know.
2017.
He's a bona fide stud, probably the best defensive end in the league, and a game changer. Andrew Berry has come out and said, no, we're not going to trade him. What the hell else are you going to say? But we know every team has their price. I think it's going to be exorbitant to the point where I would really be surprised if it happens. That doesn't mean that Garrett won't sit out. He could very well say, you know what? I can wait till week 8 or 9 or 10 or wherever it is. I have to come back, and so my contract holds. You guys are going to suck anyways, and me being there isn't going to make your offense better. But they're also in a good spot if they want to, get a bunch of draft capital or some draft capital in a player for him. They can take Abdul Carter, who's probably the top defensive edge rusher coming into the league this year, compared very favorably with Micah Parsons, not just because he's coming out of Penn State, but just because he's that darn good. So, well, I don't expect Cleveland to be actively trying to trade him. You're going to listen when teams call because you don't want a disgruntled player, and the team kind of is a mess at the quarterback position. But we'll see what happens when they go into the draft. They could really shake things up, put some good pieces in place that could potentially show Garrett, hey, we're moving in the right direction. We got a little something going on here. And so that may change his tune a little bit. If nothing happens, I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a whole lot of OTAs and stuff like that all summer, just kind of stays away to make his point, and then come back in, third week of camp and, say, all right, let's get it done.
So from players to coaches, Chip Kelly moves from Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator for the Raiders. Meanwhile, the Bears hired Eric Bieniemy to be a running back coach. Obviously, Ben Johnson going to probably be calling the plays in Chicago. They also have another offensive coordinator who his name escapes me because he will never be calling plays. So what do you make of these moves?
Are you thinking of Eric Bieniemy?
No, Bieniemy got hired as the running backs coach. They have another coach that's
right.
their offensive coordinator.
My bad.
I can't think of who he is, but he's not going to call plays. So.
Right. So Chip Kelly, I think, what we can expect is that the Raiders are going to start to play fast. They're going to that was his calling card in college and in the pros. So when he got to Philadelphia, his first year, they were 13th in plays run. His second season, they were first. His third season, they were second. He went to San Francisco in 2016. Now, they were only 25th, but I think if we extrapolate the pattern from Philadelphia, I think in a year of bringing in his own players and installing his system, I would have expected if he had gotten the second year in San Fran for them to run a lot more plays. So that's what he likes to do. He needs to – his offense is built on speed and, being in better condition than other teams and catching them off guard, not allowing them to substitute. So I think we've seen his offenses be successful somewhat in the NFL. Granted, he's going to Las Vegas where they don't have a quarterback. I don't know that they get a first-round quarterback out of this draft, and honestly, I think that may be a good thing. There's some speculation that they're going to go for Justin Fields to pair with the Chip Kelly offense. You know, I want Justin Fields to be successful. He's a Buckeye. I'm a Buckeye. But at this point in his career, I've not seen enough that tells me he can be, you know, a top 20 quarterback in the NFL even. So will he get a chance? Probably. Will it be Vegas? I don't think so. Sitting at 6, I think, you know, they have a chance. They can get Ted McMillan. That would give them a stud wide receiver in the, you know,
I don't
Mike
know if
Evans.
you've seen the latest mock drafts, but there's a lot of movement and suggestion that people are not going to go quarterback at the top.
I've seen a lot of them.
So
I have. So potentially they can get
Shedeur
Shedeur.
Sanders. Yeah.
Well, and I read something earlier today that if Shedeur's there, there's some thought that, you know, because Tom Brady wasn't the biggest arm quarterback, wasn't mobile, that being tutored by Brady might be something that would be beneficial for Sanders, that would help his game come forward. And we've seen, you know, smaller arm quarterbacks, weaker arm quarterbacks be successful in the NFL. Joe Montana wasn't known for having a big arm. He was able to, you know, run the offense, get in the right play, make the right read, make the right throw, things like that. And if Sanders can do that, you don't have to have Josh Allen's arm. And if he can do that, think we've seen it with Brock Purdy, you don't have to have Lamar Jackson's legs. You can be a very, very good quarterback, productive for fantasy, productive for the NFL, without having a monster arm or monster legs. So if Sanders is there, I would expect the Raiders to take him. I do kind of think that Tennessee's leaning towards Ward. And if Sanders is at 3, it feels I almost feel like Daboll has to take a quarterback. So if both are gone, I think Ted McMillan, maybe Will Howard in the 3rd round. He knows the Chip Kelly offense. I think he could transition to the NFL pretty well, pretty quickly, running the same offense. He's very mobile, a very good athlete. He could provide some running. He's got a good arm. We've seen glimpses of Howard's anticipation, especially the first half of the Texas game. He was really spot on with that. He's definitely got some growing to go. Jacoby Myers is signed through 25. They need a running back. It's that there are some pieces there. It'll be interesting to see what Pete Carroll does. You know, I don't think Pete Carroll came in to go, you know, 1-16 to get the first overall pick next year. So they'll be active. They're going to go get some free agents. They're going to make the most of their draft. The Jets assistants, I think.
Well, I'll get to them in a minute.
Oh, as far as Eric Bieniemy, you know, I think he's a good running backs coach. I think the numbers are skewed, though. In Minnesota, he was 26th in 2006, the running offense. These are all, he had 10 years of being a running backs coach, 5 with Minnesota and 5 with Kansas City. So in Minnesota, it was 26, 1, 5, 13, and 10. So he started with Chester Taylor, but then it was all Adrian Peterson. So it's like, man, how much?
A lot of coaching there.
You want to give him some credit, but man, it was Adrian Peterson. Well, then he goes to Kansas City in 2013 and has the 10th ranked running offense. In 14, the 10th ranked offense. That was with Jamal Charles. So it's like, okay, you know, it's, you know, I'll tell you, you put a supermodel on each arm of me, I look a whole hell of a lot better. Yeah. But then in 2015, he had the 6th ranked rushing offense with Charkandrick West and Spencer Ware.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, hey, we could, maybe there's something there. The 15th ranked offense in 2016 and the 9th ranked in 2017. And that was with Spencer Ware. I don't think anybody is going to put Spencer Ware in the same category as Jamal Charles or Adrian Peterson or Chester Taylor for that matter. So we have seen Bieniemy do good things in the running game, be top half of the league in the running game with less than great running backs. So I think that's good to pair him with Ben Johnson. I think they'll look at that thunder and lightning approach that they have in Detroit. I'm not sure Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift are the ideal pairing for that, but I think it remains to be seen. I think Johnson is an exceptional offensive coordinator. Let's see how, when he's calling the shots across the board, things go. What direction do they go? Can he maintain that prolific offense?
Well, meanwhile, the Jets, they have Aaron Glenn. He's been working on assembling that offensive staff. He got Tanner Engstrand to be the offensive coordinator, a guy he worked with at the Detroit Lions. They brought in Scott Turner for the passing game coordinator and Charles London to be their quarterbacks coach. Something all three of those coaches have in common is they have never worked with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets offense and the team in general seemed a little dysfunctional last year. We've wondered what was going to happen with Rodgers, Davante Adams. It seems like Garrett Wilson wants out. What do you make of these hires and their impact on that offseason question?
So I like the Scott Turner hire. I think he's a solid coach. I don't know if he's like a Ben Johnson blow your mind kind of coach, but he's not Darrell Bevell. And so, he's somewhere between Ben Johnson and Darrell Bevell, probably in the middle, maybe towards the top half a little bit. So I like that. I think London is a good quarterbacks coach. It remains to be seen with the offensive coordinator. He's taken a step up. Was he the QB coach in Detroit, I think, or passing game coordinator in Detroit?
Something.
So, I think that Aaron Glenn he learned from Dan Campbell,
the passing game coordinator.
He learned from Dan Campbell about, kind of motivation and, hire good coordinators and let them do their thing. So, and I think he can look back at his previous head coaching stint, and because I think he was a head coach once before, wasn't he? And kind of pick out his mistakes that he made, and I think it can be good. If I'm a Jets fan, I don't want Rodgers to come back. I think even if we got to eat a bunch of money this year, I don't want Rodgers to come back. They're trying to figure out how to what the cap implications are with Rodgers, $49 million in dead cap. But I know Rodgers' ego says you can still do it, go out there and play. But it doesn't feel like his heart is really in it. I watch,
Glenn has never been a head coach before.
Okay. So, Davante Adams has just $8.4 million in dead cap, but he's got a $38 million cap hit if he's on the team. So it feels like he's going to be gone. You don't trade Garrett Wilson. They've got to do something at quarterback, whether it's bringing a veteran like Kirk Cousins or, God forbid, Russell Wilson. They got to do something, whether it's, go for one of these second tier rookies and see how fast you can develop them, whether it's Quinn Ewers or Jackson Dart or Will Howard. There's some second tier quarterbacks that have potential. I do think they're going to be better served to not play in 2025, but there's not a lot of great quarterbacks out there available. And if you're going to let Aaron Rodgers walk, as detrimental as having him on the team is, he's still probably one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league.
This might be a hot take, but I'm leaning more toward him being on the team. I originally thought he was for sure gone, but feels like they weren't willing to eat the loss, and they have no long-term plans. So.
Yeah, I can see that, but also they don't have anybody in the front office and coaching staff that's tied to him.
But I think the real wild card is their owner, and I don't know. I have a feeling he's gonna be there.
He'll just dip into that rich guy slush fund Trump is creating for the wealthy people.
Well, before we get out of here, we did a rookie mock draft. We did a 3-round 12-team Superflex mock draft. Dennis and I took positions that would be mirror opposites of what we were in the startup draft we did, and I used that a little bit to color some of my strategy. So make this a little bit bigger for those of you who are watching online. We kicked off. Aston Janty went pick 1, being Superflex. Ward goes pick 2. McMillan goes to Cole at pick 3. Our friend John took Emeka Ibuka. I was at 5, and looking at what came off the board, I actually considered Luther Burden, because I feel like wide receiver is not my strongest area on that startup roster of what I was using, but ended up going with Sanders, with it being Superflex. I had taken Joe Burrow and Bo Nix and Sam Darnold in the startup, so I feel pretty good, but quarterbacks always at a premium. Injuries, you never can tell. After me, we had a run of running backs: Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Omari Hampton. Then we came to you grabbed top tight end Tyler Warren. Then we had Luther Burden go at 11, and finally Travis Hunter at 12. So I want you to give me your thoughts overall on the first round. And then when we get down to Hunter, I guess one of my big questions coming into this draft was, I don't know, especially at this point in time, how to feel about Hunter. A lot of sites have him ranked very high. He could be among the top 3 picks. He played receiver and defensive back, and we don't 100% know how a team is going to use him. On a lot of sites, he's ranked as the number 1 wide receiver. I just did not feel strongly enough that I wanted to take him early, but it feels like by the time you get to the back of the first round, even at this point, you have to consider him. But how did you feel about this round, and how do you feel about Travis Hunter right now? I think you're muted.
I feel like he's going to play a lot of cornerback and a little bit of wide receiver. That being said, I think the potential is there for him to have sort of a Rashid Shaheed kind of impact. If he's out there for 20 snaps and he runs 15 routes and he gets 4 targets, I could see him putting up, 75 yards and a touchdown. Not every week, but I think he's got that kind of potential. It's just a gamble. Like you said, he may very well be the best wide receiver in this class, but he's also the best cornerback in this class. And it's going to be interesting to watch how the teams talk about what they're doing. Like, what position is he announced at the draft? That'll be something to really key on early when we, help us try to kind of figure it out.
I mean, I hope that we get some kind of a clarity before draft night. It'd be nice to see, at the combine or in the run up, if there's, or at least get an idea of how teams are viewing him.
Yeah, it's, we're going to have to keep our ears to the door and ears to the wall and just kind of listen and see, like, are we getting any clues on how teams view him? But much like, some of these players that are surprise first round picks, it only takes one team to fall in love with you to be that first round pick. And in Hunter's case, 31 teams could view him as a shutdown cornerback that'll get a few snaps on offense, and one team could view him as like, this guy's the difference maker on our offense. If we get him 12 targets a game, our offense is going to be unstoppable. So, it's really, really challenging.
I will say, I just looked to see ESPN has their best available in player ranks, and they have him ranked as their number one wide receiver. They do not have him listed at cornerback in their draft available. That's just one site, but I think that speaks to, if we knew he was going to be a full-time wide receiver, where would you put him against some of these other receivers?
I think he probably would be the wide receiver 1, though if somebody had McMillan over him and had him at 2, I don't think I could make a strong case that they were insane.
Yeah. What did you think of the rest of the first round, and maybe what drew you to Tyler Warren?
So, thinking about where my startup team I drafted was, it was, I went with just one tight end, and that was Trey McBride, who, if you're only going to have one tight end, that's a pretty good one to have. But I was also weak at running back, and so I was kind of hoping, when I picked the 10th spot, I thought that there was a pretty good chance that Burden or Warren or maybe even Hunter would go before or somewhere in the middle of this running back run, and I would be able to get one of those 4 running backs at the 110. It didn't work out that way. We had that run in the first round there with Judkins, Johnson, Henderson, and Hampton. And at 10, I'd have taken whichever one was left. It really didn't matter to me. That being said, I do think that Warren has the ability to be, dollar store Brock Bowers. He isn't as fast as Bowers, and he's not as shifty, but he's a really good receiver. He's a good runner. He can throw the ball. And so I think he can step into a role early while he learns how to be an NFL tight end, because he's got size. I think he's 6'6", 240. So it's not like he's, Oronde Gadsden, who was being listed at a tight end weighing 215 pounds. Now I think Gadsden is weighed up, built up and weighed in the 230s since, and so they finally are changing that. But I think Warren is he's one of these guys that could be a Travis Kelce type of weapon at the tight end position. And having only rostered Trey McBride on that team, I felt like that was a good pick. Yeah, I think if somebody else was at 10, you can easily make the case for taking Burden and probably even Hunter on speculation this late. I don't hate picking Travis Hunter at 112. You got to start to take shots somewhere, and when you get late in the first round, that's a pretty good opportunity.
Yeah, you and I both exited that startup draft, probably with questions about tight end. You have a premium tight end, but no depth. I took a couple shots later. I'm feeling better about Ben Sinnott right now because, it seems like the Commanders have said that they are not going to bring back Zach Ertz. That makes me feel a little better. And Cade Otton pops up here or there. But in the second round, I was definitely going to take Colston Loveland, and then John took him right in front of me. So I ended up pivoting and going with a wide receiver, another area that I had considered in round 1, trying to boost up. But super flex, quarterback is always a in demand position, but we know this isn't going to probably be a spectacular quarterback draft. Only 2 went in the first round, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, who right now seem like they are pretty locked into being the top 2, although there's been some movement that some people think Jackson Dart has passed Shedeur Sanders and that quarterbacks may fall even further. But in our draft, we saw 3 more go in the second round, with Jalen Milroe being the 3rd off the board. Then then Jackson Dart at the 2-7, Quinn Ewers going the back end of the second round, and then 2 more in the third round with Dylan Gabriel at 3-3, and then you grabbing Will Howard at 3-10. What do you think of quarterbacks, and what did you think of how quarterbacks fell in this Superflex rock?
Cole took Dylan Gabriel, and he likes Gabriel as a fan. And so I'm not sure Gabriel has what it takes. He's going to have to be, a left-handed Russell Wilson. And I don't know if he has the arm to be able to.
Seattle Russell Wilson or Denver
what?
Russell? Seattle Russell Wilson
Seattle
or
Russell
Denver
Wilson.
Russell?
I think if you're going to have him be your starter, you're hoping he can be Seattle Russell Wilson. I don't think he can. I don't think he's got the arm for it. He's got the experience. He's been in college for 14 years. So, played at 11 different programs. So Dylan does have experience, and we've seen how that matters with guys like Brock Purdy that come in after spending a significant amount of time. Bo Nix. Now, Nix was a first-round pick, but I think there was a lot of talk leading up that there were a lot of teams that didn't have Nix even close to being as high as where the Broncos took him. Cole's draft overall, he went Ted McMillan in the first. At this point, the argument can be made he's the top wide receiver. He went Devin Neal out of Kansas as a running back in the second round. So that was RB6. I think that's a pretty good spot for him. I think Ollie Gordon might be going ahead of him, and Gordon didn't go till RB8 at the 209. So there's still some movement happening here early in the process. As far as the quarterbacks, though, going back, Jalen Milroe didn't have a great Senior Bowl. Jackson Dart was okay. It wasn't one of those, he didn't blow the roof off the doors, as Matthew Berry would say. Quinn Ewers and Will Howard. I don't think Ewers played in the Senior Bowl, did he?
I don't think he did either.
Yeah. So, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think getting into that combine prep, I think Howard may have went there, but he didn't do any of the drills. It was more for meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, the 6 that they have listed: Milroe, Dart, Gabriel, Howard, Riley Leonard, and Tyler Shawn of Louisville.
Yeah, but I think there were other players there that didn't really participate. They were more, because Shadur Sanders went to the Shrine Bowl but didn't do anything. He literally didn't even get measured.
Some meetings.
Yeah. And so I think we're seeing players that think they have that, and Howard could make the argument, I just came off the national championship game a week ago, even though Riley Leonard was out there playing.
There's still been some persistent talk that even though Quinn Ewers said he declared for the draft, that he might end up going back into college, which I guess isn't there a deadline for when they can?
Yeah, and it's passed. I don't think he can go back into the college if he's declared by the deadline. But I don't know. It's the rules are getting screwy now with NIL and whatnot. A couple other late quarterbacks that you may see in the 4th or 5th round of your drafts, especially in Superflex. Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. I think he's a pretty big guy, about 6'4", 6'5". Tyler Shuff, maybe he's the one out of Shug. He might be the one out of Indiana, one of them. And then Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, who led college football in passing yards last year after transferring from Ohio State. So these are some guys that they're going to get drafted. It's going to be late. They're going to be behind people, but they do have some potential to develop. Now, I'm not going to hang my hat on them and hope that in 2026, one of these guys is going to be my QB2. But there is some potential. They're kind of all similar guys in the fact that they're in the 6'3" to 6'5" range, 220, 230 pounds, good arm, not necessarily a ton of mobility. So they do provide that more classic pocket passer type. It's not a great quarterback class. It wouldn't surprise me to see all of them fall. And for Ward, that could be as simple as from 1 to 3. For Sanders, from 2 or 3 or even 6 to a few picks later. So if they start to drop and it kind of extrapolates a little bit, or what's the word I'm looking for, where it gets a little bit bigger each time. Anyways, doesn't matter. Getting old sucks sometimes. You can't remember shit.
Multiplies.
Yeah, that wasn't it either. But no, I think, it's a decent decent draft for running backs. I think after Hampton and maybe even Ollie Gordon, so after your top 5 or 6, it becomes a draft of, A-B type of running backs. Your 1A, your 1B. Khalil Mullings is a guy that, he's very Gus Edwards. Big guy. He's going to hammer in, get the short yardage. But then you've got somebody like Jordan James, who in college was good on the inside and could potentially be in the NFL, a la Kyron Williams. But he's one of these 195, 200 pounders. So he may be that receiving kind of back that you're looking for. Dylan Sampson the same way. Damian Martinez out of Miami. He's the guy that's going late, but a lot of people like his ability. And, he could be a 2.5 down back. You're going to want to pair him maybe with a good receiving back, but he's a good enough pass catcher that, some third downs you're going to leave him in there for.
Overall, did you have any other thoughts about mock draft? It feels like, it'd be interesting to see how, how this stacks up when we do one closer to the actual draft after the combine.
I like the Tez Johnson pick. I'm curious to see, he weighed in at 156 pounds at the Senior Bowl, or maybe it was the Shrine Bowl, whichever one he was at. That's light. Now, he was tall enough, 5'11", but 156 pounds. That's like mini Devonta Smith. And will he be able to get off the line of scrimmage in the NFL, or will cornerbacks be able to get their hands on him and disrupt him so that, all the timing is off? Having watched him as an Ohio State fan play against us, he's done some shit out there. He's very, very good, but the NFL game is a little bit different. Xavier Restrepo, he looks like he's going to be somebody that can, step right into a slot role a la Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp and just kind of dominate out of that role. I like Higgins out of Iowa State. He's a big wide receiver. I think he's 6'4", 212. So, I'm still, despite my mediocre success with picking them, I'm still team big wide receiver.
I mean, you do certainly have a type. Well, at least a good way to dive in, get a little bit of feet wet. It was an interesting way to spend, I think we did on Saturday, right? Way to spend our Saturday afternoon. Be curious to see, we are now just about a month away from the combine. I think it's that first week in March.
It starts, I think, February 27th or something.
Yep. So get a look and see how some of these guys fare, see how some of the things shake out, see if we can figure out if Travis Hunter is our best corner or our best receiver. Just those minor questions. That one actually has big impact on fantasy drafts. Or like you said, maybe we'll have to tune in on the first night of the draft and see how they announce it.
I mean, so the thing with Hunter is that if he's primarily a cornerback, if he's going to play 90% of his snaps at cornerback for an NFL team, not only is it bad for fantasy from a offensive / wide receiver perspective, because you're not having him featured like that. But because he's so good at cornerback, he's not going to be good for IDP either, because what happens when you're good at IDP, a good cornerback? They throw it at the other guy. So you're not making plays.
I have a lot of shares of Pat Surtain, and you don't get a lot of points, even though he might end up being Defensive Player of the Year. Well, that'll do it for us today. There's a tiny little game, perhaps you've heard of it, called the Super Bowl that's taking place on Sunday. So on Friday, we will preview the game. But before that, we will talk about a few of the Super Bowl props. I picked some things out, so hopefully that will be a little bit of fun. I declined putting the prop about how many calls will go Kansas City's way. Apparently that's enough that it's getting prop bets.
Mm-hmm.
But Dennis, if people have a long week ahead of them and they're tired of listening to answers from Super Bowl Media Day, what can they do?
Well, they can go to their favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Heck, go back to the 23rd. See where I went a little deeper in depth on why Cooper Kupp's going to get traded. What is that, 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago? So
I mean, that's why we started doing some of those who we think is going to break out, who we think is going to get traded, and then hopefully watch the dominoes fall during this off season. That'll do it for us today. Looking forward to talking Super Bowl with you on Friday. Until then, you guys have a wonderful week.